Can you guys hear me now? Okay, that's weird. All right. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we will be reading from Surah 9, verse 25. No, sorry. Where is it? Yeah, verse 34. Sorry. So, it shall seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Beware of professional religionists, O you who believe. Many religious leaders and preachers take the people's money illicitly and repel from the path of God. Those who hoard the gold and silver and do not spend them in the cause of God, promise them a painful retribution. The day will come when their gold and silver will be heated in the fire of hell, they used to burn their foreheads, their sides, and their backs. This is what you hoarded for yourselves, so taste what you have hoarded. So, subhanAllah, these are, very strong and very scary verses about people who, turn their religion into a money-making scheme, a business. And people make, millions and millions of dollars from using the religion as a business. A lot of people, the stories of a lot of these preachers, especially here in the U.S., that came from other professions, and then religion was just something they found very lucrative, and they started pretending to be righteous and all that, and started making a lot of money. Uh, it's certainly true for all other parts of the world. Especially if you look at all the three religions, a major religion in the world is all these people are supposed to not use religion for making money, but it's a profession. People go to school, they go to college, university, and then specialize in religion, and then they go to these religious institutions, and then they use it as a job, or they use it as some other way of making money. But we've seen a great example from, let's say, God's messengers who come to this world, and they have their own professions. They just like everybody else, they earn their livelihood, but then they don't make any money from religion. They spend their own money in the cause of God. It's the opposite. But they don't actually take money from people. But all these professional religionists, you see, they spend money too, but they make a lot more than they spend from religion, which is a business, like any other business. They invest uh, in marketing and all of this stuff, and then they make money. They have merchandise, and they sell that, and they people pay them for their services. Everything, right? So, and so these people actually use that money to make more and more money. Um, just here in the U.S., for example, all of these religious churches, they're huge in terms of their, financial standings, and their worth. A lot of these churches are huge because they have made so much money. Especially here in California, like, some of these churches are, just so powerful in terms of how much money they have, and they have made their, religious regulations so that they cannot be touched by the government, with their money, and they do it in such a, deceptive and devious way. Of course, also. It's a free country and everything, and there's good things about having laws in place where religious organizations should be not taxed as heavy, for example, right? But this becomes even a bigger incentive for a lot of people. They're like, okay, well, we can do this business, and you're not even taxed. You know, they just make a lot of money this way. And God says, you know, I mean, this is something that's gonna really gonna torment them in hell. You know, with all the money that they have earned, and I mean, all this, all these things. I mean, people buy people buy jets and stuff like that here by taking money from others, and they even are, you know, they even like, especially the with the religion, you know, these gospels that they preach with, you know, about being rich and stuff like that. You know, I mean, I don't know, I forgot the name, but like they tell people, you know, hey, like I need another 10 million because I want to buy a jet, and God is going to give me a jet, and people pour in money from all parts of the world, you know, especially because they say, you know, the more you pay, you know, the more God is going to give you, and you're going to join God's kingdom, and you're going to be healthy, and you're going to be rich. And if you want to be rich, like send me, you know, more money, and God will give you more, and they send more money, and you know, eventually, I mean, it's very interesting. But I mean, you see around the world, I mean, how much this is happening. Right? It's not just here in the U.S. I mean, U.S. is supposed to be a better example, right? So you look at others, I mean, it's worse. But anyways, God says we have to be aware of them, and God is warning them that this money that they're hoarding is going to backfire against them eventually. I mean, they think that they're enjoying life, and living in big mansions and flying jets and whatnot, you know, taking people's money and you know, fooling them and stuff like that. But they cannot fool God, and eventually they're going to have to pay. So um, this is you know, serious. We should not be using money as a means. We should not be using religion as a means of making money. We should be spending more from our own pockets, you know, for our hereafter, you know, just in the cause of God. And, you know, these people, they do the opposite. Uh, I mean, you can take money from people, but, you know, it would be different if you had taken that money and you had all spent that in the cause of God instead of hoarding it for yourselves, you know. There's nothing wrong with people as a group, you know, spending in the cause of God, you know, putting money together and buying and printing Qurans and things like that, you know, building mosques and all that stuff. But, you know, these people, you know, build mosques, but they take more from people because the building of the mosques is just, you know, their way of, you know, expanding their franchise, which is making more. Um, so, God willing, I'll continue. Verse 36, God's system, 12 months per year. The count of months as far as God is concerned is 12. This has been God's law since the day he created the heavens and the earth. Four of them are sacred. This is the perfect religion. You shall not wrong your souls by fighting during the sacred months. However, you may declare all out war against the idol worshippers even during the sacred months when they declare all out war against you, and know that God is on the side of the righteous. The footnote for 936 says the word month is mentioned in the Quran 12 times and day 365 times. SubhanAllah. Uh, altering the sacred months. Altering the sacred months is a sign of excessive disbelief. It augments the strength of those who have disbelieved. They alternate the sacred months and the regular months while preserving the number of months consecrated by God. They thus violate what God has consecrated. Their evil works are done in their eyes. God does not guide the disbelieving people. And the footnote says the sacred months, according to the corrupted Muslim world, are Rajab, Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, and Muharram, 7, 11, 12, and 1. So 7th, 11th, 12th, and 1st months of the Islamic calendar. A careful study of the Quran, however, reveals that they should be Zulhijjah, Muharram, Safar, and Rabiul Awwal. 12th, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd months. See Appendix 15. And if you actually look at Appendix 15, it actually talks about the religious duties and talks about the 4 months of Hajj. Under pilgrimage, Hajj and Umrah, you can find more details about about this as well. Um, and it says, I'm just going to read a small portion of that. It says, once in a lifetime, Hajj and Umrah are decreed for those who can afford it. Pilgrimage commemorates Abraham's exemplary submission to God, Appendix 9, and must be observed during the four sacred months, Zulhijjah, Muharram, Safar, and Rabiul Awwal, 12th, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd months. And then also references to 197, 9, 2, and 36. Umrah can be observed anytime, like all other duties in Islam. Hajj has been distorted. Most Muslims observe Hajj only during a few days in Zulhijjah, and they consider Rajab, Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, and Muharram, 7th, 11th, 12th, first months to be the sacred months. This is distortion that is strongly condemned, 937. Okay, so um, then um, this is condemned by God because God says their evil works are dawn in their eyes. I mean, and it reflects the excessive strain. I mean, why did these people feel the need to actually change? Months that God has consecrated. I mean, it's just, and then also to change the duration that people can observe Hajj. For their own ease. I mean, because they don't want to deal with the hassle of 4 months, so they just put that. It's like you have guests coming every 7 days of the week. Guests can come anytime. You're like, oh well, I just don't want to feel it. I just don't want to feel inconvenienced by all of these guests coming at any time in those 7 days. Why don't I just tell them, just there's just one day, if anybody wants to come, they have to come. And then I guess a simpler analogy, just to get a better idea, like they don't want to be inconvenienced with visitors, and they put it that way. And then obviously, I mean, it has so many other consequences. I mean, there is the prices hike so high because of the demand, for like places to stay and stuff like that. And so like you can observe Hajj during any other time for like maybe quarter the price that you will pay during those 10 days, because it's so crowded, right? And so many people die and whatnot. So, and I think we talked about this in one of the previous studies as well. But this basically shows us that those sacred months, because the way it talks about those months in these verses is by saying those 4 months is once they're over, you can fight. So it clearly shows that it happens in a sequence. Uh, so God says that if even if they fight during those months, even though you're not allowed to fight during those months, if they fight, then you're allowed to defend yourself during those months. So obviously that is for the protection of the submitters, so that people don't take advantage, knowing that you can't fight even if you're attacked. So obviously it's if you can't defend yourself, then people will attack you for sure and take advantage of that. So hence this is in place. Uh, verse 38. O you who believe, when you are told, mobilize in the cause of God, why do you become heavily attached to the ground? Have you chosen this worldly life in place of the hereafter? The materials of this world compared to the hereafter are nil. Unless you mobilize, he will commit you to painful retribution and substitute other people in your place. You can never hurt him in the least. God is omnipotent. So again, these are very strong verses for believers, to tell them to mobilize in the cause of God. I mean, to strive in the cause of God, to mobilize in the cause of God, and especially in the scenario that when it comes to fighting, for example, here, it becomes even more important for believers to mobilize, to support other believers and to support the cause of God. And obviously, we see that the people who hesitate are doing it for worldly reasons, because they maybe care more about their families than God or their business than God, and they don't really trust in God, and they'd rather just opt for convenience, rather than striving in God's cause. So God says, if you do that, I mean, if you choose that, then obviously there's going to be painful retribution, and God will substitute other people in their place. So we have to think about that. If anything that we do in the cause of God, we're not doing anybody a favor, especially we're not doing God a favor or the believers. I mean, we're doing ourselves a favor, and if we don't do these things, obviously, God will, you know, it's God's plan for submission to prevail. So if you don't do it, God will put someone else in your place, and He will do it or she will do it. So we have to, look at everything in our religion, all our duties in religion, everything we do in the cause of God in this way. It's not big first of all, it's not anything big on our part. Obviously, it's good that, God is allowing us to earn credit this way, but it's all because of God, and we should be humble about it, in our hearts. We should know that, and we should want to be eager to strive in His cause. I think that's very important. Also, the part I wanted to actually focus on here also was for verse 37, is that the evil works are adorned in their eyes, and they altered the sacred months and the regular months while preserving the number of months. Now, see the obviously there's what I mean. If if you had like a certain holiday or something like that, and you wanted to change that, for like say December didn't work for you and you wanted to change it to March or something like that, it would be totally fine, right? It's not a sin. But why it's such a huge sin is because you're playing with God's regulations. You're changing things that God has consecrated. You're attributing lives to God, and so God says, "Who are more evil than those who attribute lives to God?" So they're changing the religion, not, I mean, they're changing the rules of Hajj too by doing that, and that also shows us excessive disbelief. Obviously, altering the sacred months obviously shows excessive disbelief. Anytime somebody wants to change anything that's part of the religion that's set by God, I mean, it's very evil, of them to do that, because there shouldn't be any reason for you to change anything in the religion, and it's not your place to do it. Obviously, it's God's system, and like you're trying to rival God, and you're trying to dissuade people from something that God has set in place. So people should be very, very afraid of touching anything that God has put in place, and to try to change it, try to question it, to try to distort it. And but yet we see that it's something that's done on a daily basis, and people just take it like it's nothing. But obviously, this is they're gonna know on the day of judgment. I mean, how bad it was that what they did with religion, dissuading people and making the religion crooked. I mean, they're actually they use their position, for example, to come from the right side, with Satan, and divert people this way, and they tell people this is what God has said, and people believe them, and they mislead so many people. So obviously, they will pay for it. Verse 40, God's invisible soldiers. If you fail to support him, the messenger, God has already supported him. Thus, when the disbelievers chased him, he was one of the two in the cave. He said to his friend, "Do not worry, God is with us." God then sent down contentment and security upon him and supported him with invisible soldiers. He made the word of the disbelievers lowly. God's word reigns supreme. God is almighty, most wise. Better believers strive in the cause of God. You shall readily mobilize, light or heavy, and strive with your money and your lives in the cause of God. This is better for you if you only knew. Okay. So, first of all, in verse 40, we see that God says that if you fail to support the messenger, obviously, God has supported him, but if you fail to support him, um, then God has already supported him. So, God doesn't need you, in other words. God has already supported him. So, whether you support him or not, I mean, God is still going to support him. So, isn't it better that, you participate and you earn credit this way rather than basically, you should try to take advantage of this, in other words, because it's good for you. Nobody needs you, nobody needs your help, but you're doing yourself a favor by doing this. And it talks about this example about when the messenger, I mean, I believe this is referring to Muhammad, when he was in the cave with one of his companions, and the disbelievers were chasing him. I believe this may have been around the time when they were in Mecca and hiding from people while they were being persecuted. Uh, they were one of the two in the cave, and they thought, I mean, one of the companions thought that they were going to get caught, and but the messenger showed confidence in God, and this reminds me of the example of Moses, when they were being chased, similarly, when they were being chased by the disbelievers, and they thought that they would be caught, and Moses said similar things. He said, "Never, my God is with me," and then obviously, God inspired him, allowed the sea to be parted. So this also shows to us that the trust, in order for you to see miracles in your life and for God to come through for your help, you have to be the one to show your trust. You have to be worthy of it by trusting in God. If you don't even trust God that He will support you, God will not support you. God supports those who trust Him, right? So you have to be the one to put your trust in God in order for God to help you, and not despair and be hopeful. And this is what we see in both the examples, right? I mean, they both wholeheartedly trusted. I mean, it wasn't like it was a doubt that maybe God will support me. Uh, that doesn't work. I mean, he was certain that God was there, that God's help would come through. He had trust in God. I mean, it's like, um, I don't know how to say this, but it's like, if I want to jump from, let's say, um so, okay, no, there's this movie. Well, actually, let's not talk about this movie. But let's say, if I stand somewhere high, right, and let's say I have a friend waiting down, right, sitting like below me, and I'm gonna jump from this place, and if nobody catches me, let's say I get hurt, right? And let's say if I'm doubtful whether this person will catch me or not, I will not do the jump, right? But if I did, and I'm doubtful and the person doesn't come through, I'm gonna get hurt. But if you're certain, you have this trust in God that you have this trust that your friend will catch you, you'll jump and you'll be saved, right? But I don't know exactly. I'm not saying it right, but anyways, I think you guys get the idea that you have to have that trust that if you jump from whatever this is, whatever this leap is that you're taking, God will be there to catch you. Okay, God will. You have to be not almost. You have to be certain that God will save you. And if you are stuck in that position, obviously nobody wants to be in that such a position, right? But we don't test God. You just don't go and jump into a situation like this and demand that God comes and saves you. But you are put in such situations, as part of your destiny, as part of your test. But when you are in that situation, I mean, this is what you have to do. You have to trust in God that He will save you. And I mean, the Master of the Covenant gave some really good examples of this too. Um, and it's like, And one of the things that got stuck with me is when someone asked him about this also, and he said, "Yeah," it says even if there is a nuclear explosion, and you're somewhere, God will make some kind of way for you that you will still be saved. Imagine like so we have to have that sort of trust in God and say, today if you are in such a situation where people are coming to catch you or something and you have no way out, seems like you're caught, at that point, I mean, it's harder to put your trust down at the point where they are nowhere to be found and when you can see a few couple of ways. But your trust in God will become weaker at the time when your odds of survival are less and less, right? But this is where the test comes, where it's right at the edge where you just think that you're toast. At that time, you show your full trust in God. I mean, that's how you pass, right? That's how they passed, and that's how they showed their exemplary devotion and trust in God. So these are examples for us to have this sort of trust in God that that if something happens, that God will come through, and and that should really strengthen us, as submitters, and it should really strengthen our souls. Also, it should really make our souls strong, knowing that you have this kind of support from God, and that God has that support. But I mean, obviously, with just believing that God supports the believers is one thing, but then obviously you have a responsibility to be that person that God supports, right? I mean, you can't be a lying, cheating person, and not believing in God, for example, in other ways, not following His commandments, and then expect God to support you, right? I mean, you have to do your part in being righteous, uh, in doing what pleases God, and then you have to also trust in God as part of that. So it all works hand in hand, right? But still, even if you're not the most righteous person, let's say, right, this is still required of you. You still need to trust in God. If I mean, you can't say, well, I don't trust in God because I have so many flaws. Right. I mean, one of your flaws is that you can't trust in God. So if that has to come anyways, that still has to come no matter what. So we have to remind ourselves that we have to trust in God. That you still can hope that God will help you in that position. And you have that support from God. You're trying, right? So based on your hard work, I mean, you still have to trust that God will help you. And if you don't, then you're not trusting in God. You're definitely gonna fail because I mean it's a requirement for you as a person who worships God because God tells you to put your trust in Him. God says He's with those who trust in Him. So if you just trust in God, that alone, can literally move mountains for you. God can move mountains for you. Better believers strive in the cause of God. So God says that, we have to strive in the cause of God, whether light or heavy, whether we're strong or weak, or rich or poor, based on our abilities. We have to actually strive with our money and our lives in the cause of God. I mean, it's not just money and it's not just lives, it's both. So we have to use both, our lives, our time, we have to give it, all of us. We have to, give everything in the cause of God and to show our true devotion and love for God. And obviously, God tells us that this is better for us. I mean, this is a commandment from God. Obviously, there will be people who are sedentary, like God says here, but their ranks are not going to be the same, So if you truly believe in God, you want to get those ranks. You want to be closer to God as much as possible, So you have to strive in the cause of God. Um, uh, because God says He guides those who strive in His path, right? So just by the fact that you are, putting all your efforts in place to strive in the cause of God, God will guide you more, so you have better chances of even just making it, right? I mean, it's not just that you say, well, I'm not going to strive because I, I just be fine if I get lower heaven, for example, and I'm just going to aim for that. There's no such thing because you don't even know how good you are. I mean, if you're even going to make it. But, if you're definitely not striving in the cause of God, you're disregarding God's commandments. I mean, that's not good either, right? So that could be that kind of thought could be a trap for you. So if you have to be someone who's a believer, uh, and you have to do your best, of course. I mean, so you have to strive. God says you have to strive. You have to strive. Like if you say no, I'm not gonna strive. Obviously that's you're just setting yourself up for failure, and it's not gonna end well. Because you're disregarding God's commandment in so many ways. And as we read here, God says, unless you mobilize, He will commit you to painful retribution and substitute other people in your place. I mean, it's different for people who want to strive, but they don't have like the means, for example, right? Um, but there's people that have means to strive and they decide not to, despite them being strong, despite them knowing things. I mean, I've seen people like that, right? I've seen people that have the ability and potential to do a lot for submission. When they come into submission, they have a lot of potential. And you think that, by them participating and doing something in submission, I mean, submission can really benefit. I mean, obviously, it's not submission benefit. I mean, God doesn't need anybody. I mean, it's for us, right? But these people don't strive. But then we see people that have little, but then they're so eager to strive. I mean, they give it their best, and they're looking for more to do whatever they can. We see that, and that's beautiful. I mean, that's the sign of a believer. That's sign of someone that has hope to make it with God. God says about the sedentary in verse 42, uh, if there were a quick material gain and a short journey, they would have followed you, but the striving is just too much for them. They will swear by God, if we could, we would have mobilized with you. They thus hurt themselves, and God knows that they are liars. So there are these people that obviously made excuses to strive in the cause of God. They say like they don't know how to strive. I mean, I just can't help but like there was this one example comes to my mind. Uh, when I first when I first uh, became a submitter, I remember um, I there was no application for submission, and I I wanted to build something, and I don't want to really give out all the details because it will be obvious who I'm talking about, and probably that's probably even not the best thing. But this person, let's just say that I mean this person was really really good in building applications, and I had no clue really at the time. I mean, I had some idea obviously, but I was like slightly in a different area of work, and so like I didn't know at the time. And this person totally lied to me. He's like, oh no, he says I don't know anything about this stuff, and then after a while I'm like fine, and I started building it, and then I find out this person knows it all, and then he started his own apps, and he was building stuff, for work, right, for his business, for his own business. But he didn't want to participate in striving, and I always remember that. But anyways, going back to the verses, it says, verse 43 says, God has pardoned you. Why did you give them permission to stay behind before you could distinguish those who are truthful from the liars? Those who truly believe in God in the last day do not ask your permission to evade the opportunity to strive with their money and their lives. God is fully aware of the righteous. The only people who wish to be excused are those who do not really believe in God in the last day. Their hearts are full of doubt, and their doubts cause them to waver. Had they really wanted to mobilize, they would have prepared for it thoroughly. But God disliked their participation, and so he discouraged them. They were told, stay behind with those who are staying behind. Had they mobilized with you, they would have created confusion and would have caused disputes and divisions among you. Some of you were apt to listen to them. God is fully aware of the transgressors. They sought to spread confusion among you in the past and confounded matters for you. However, the truth ultimately prevails, and God's plan is carried out in spite of them. Some of them would say, give me permission to stay behind. Do not impose such a hardship on me. In fact, they have thus incurred a terrible hardship. Hell is surrounding the disbelievers. So, these verses are pretty clear and self-explanatory. I mean, in terms of how important it is for people to strive. And as I said, those who truly believe will are the ones who want to strive. And God, I mean, God is telling the messenger here, like, why did he even give them permission to stay behind when they were supposed to fight in war and strive against the disbelievers, uh, when there were people that were actually lying, and then there were people that were honest, so, but he obviously, uh, God says he has pardoned you. I mean, obviously that was a mistake on his part. I mean, he was supposed to uh, be more careful, and he was supposed to um, pay attention and find out which one was telling the truth, which one was lying, and probably should tell people who were lying to maybe think twice. Obviously, you can't force them if they don't want to do it, but at least, you could just, remind them. But he just allowed them to stay behind without knowing who was lying, who wasn't. Uh, so those who truly believe in God in the last day, God says that they will strive in the cause of God. They will be eager to strive in the cause of God, and they don't look for excuses not to strive. But the people who have doubts in their hearts, they're doubtful about God's blessings. Obviously, nobody in their right mind would want to evade that. If I work in a company, and I say I have this task, and if you do it, I'm going to make you the vice president of the company, and you're a janitor. You know, you will do whatever you can to get up to the level where you can just bump your rank up from a janitor to the vice president, or some senior position, let's say, and or let's say, vice president of even the cleaning department. It's like very obvious. But if you think, well, no, I think the company's lying, there's no such thing, why would they do that? You're not going to do it, right? You'd rather not do it, because you think it's just inconvenience. And you're not going to gain anything from it. There's no benefit. This is just a lie, and or maybe it's a lie, and you won't do it. So that's how they think. They think that, well, I don't know, maybe yes, striving, but maybe it's just all made up. So these kind of thoughts that happen in people's minds. Um, okay, somebody's on Facebook. These kind of thoughts that happen in people's minds. Um, evade, I mean, cause them to waver. And God says, had they really wanted to mobilize, they would have prepared for it thoroughly. I mean, they would be excited, they would be eager, they would have done everything they can possibly to do whatever they could to participate and strive this way, And but God says but then these people were obviously not fit for it, in the sense that, God disliked their participation because they could have caused confusion, disputes, and problems, and God really disliked their participation because of that, and God discouraged them. So this also shows that, it's not just you doing the striving, it's God who is planning it all, and God decides who comes and who doesn't, and who joins and who doesn't. And so He knows that if this person came in, obviously, God's plan, let's say for example, is for submission to prevail, right? But God knows if this person, and this person were in it, then this plan would probably not go through the way he wants it to go through, in a smooth fashion, because these people will create problems. So he discourages those people to strive. This also shows that God's immaculate plan behind everything that we do. It's not even us that are doing it. It's just God doing it. But we can be fortunate enough to do it. But I mean, these people, if they could really fix what was in their hearts, I mean, obviously, God would make them one of those people, right? But because they didn't want to do it, because they were doubtful about it, God discouraged them too. And obviously, if they were part of it because of their doubts, I mean, they would be disputing and fighting and causing confusion and all of that, divisions. So he disliked their participation because of that. And you can see that some of these people would say, like, when they ask permission to stay behind, they say, "Do not impose such a hardship on me." So striving in the cause of God, they treat it as a chore, as some kind of a hardship, But but what they should really be thinking of, the way they should really be thinking about is, it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity, it's a gift from God for you to gain high ranks with God. So you should want to, happily, cheerfully strive, rather than think, oh, like, why are you putting in so much trouble, So obviously this is a very wrong mindset, and God says this is why God says they have thus incurred a terrible hardship. By saying that, they have actually incurred a terrible hardship. And what's that terrible hardship? Is hell. I mean, is it better to be? I mean, what's the bigger hardship? Obviously, hell, there's nothing worse than hell. I mean, versus you striving in the cause of God. I mean, if you truly believe, you would happily choose that, right? I mean, it's a very clear choice. Um, okay, so verse 50. If something good happens to you, um, they hurt, and if an affliction befalls you, they say, "We told you so," as they turn away rejoicing. Say, "Nothing happens to us except what God has decreed for us. He is our Lord and Master. In God the believers shall trust." Say, "You can only expect for us one of two good things: victory or martyrdom, while we expect for you condemnation from God and retribution from Him, or at our hands. Therefore wait, and we will wait along with you." Say, "Spend willingly or unwillingly, nothing will be accepted from you, for you are evil people." So, uh, this is talking about people that are probably, disbelievers, because either they're hypocrites that have doubts in their hearts, or they're just simply the disbelievers that are in the opposition, because both of them are the same. In fact, the hypocrites are worse, in ranks, lower in ranks than the disbelievers. And so, uh, these are the people that, obviously, these are the people that are saying, I mean, they're also hypocrites are also disbelievers, right? But there are a kind of disbelievers that are hard to spot, that pretend to be believers. And but they're enemies. The hypocrites are enemies too. That's why it says, if something good happens to you, they actually hurt. And this shows that they're with Satan. They don't want submission to prevail. They don't want believers to succeed. And if they see any blessings come your way, uh, they actually, it just hurts them more. And if an affliction befalls you, like if you have a setback of some sort, they will actually tell you that we told you so as a turn away rejoicing, because obviously they're themselves not striving, they're discouraging other people from striving, so they're telling them not to do it. And when something like that happens, where apparently it looks like it's a setback, you, they show their true colors and they actually are happy. Like, haha, I told you. Uh, and and God says the response for those people, it says, nothing happens to us except what God has decreed for us. He is our Lord and Master. In God, believers shall trust. So again, they say we trust in God, and nothing happens other than what God has decreed for us. So we're gonna do what God wants for us because in Him we trust. If we just do what God says, no matter what happens, we will be safe. Because He is with us, right? So I mean, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful concept to grasp. Is you if you know that God is your true Lord and Master, then you follow God. You have nothing to worry about because He's God. He controls everything. So that's just the best security right there for you. I mean, it should make you so happy, if you truly believe in it, and so content and peaceful. But also, but these, you have to show your trust in God for sure for that, right? And also, the believers who are fighting in the cause of God, I mean, they they still are expecting good things, right? Like if a setback happens, so what? You know, the worst thing that the worst thing that could happen is, let's say, they die, right? But what that is not the worst thing either, because that is great. They become martyrs, and you as a martyr will have a great rank with God too. So, they said, like, we trust in God. Only good things can happen from this point onward. We're not afraid. But these people who are rejoicing, the hypocrites, I mean, they think that, these people lost, something bad happened to them because they lost their lives or something, right? But this is actually great because they got martyred in the cause of God. So either they will be martyrs, or if things work in a different way. I mean, they're just gonna be, the people who will be the winners, like victorious, in the war against the disbelievers too. So, but that should be, for us too. I mean, if you are doing something to strive in the cause of God, I mean, it's not a war, right? It's just anything you're doing to strive in the cause of God, whether it it succeeds or not, doesn't matter, because it's your actual effort that you're making that is the key. I mean, it's not like a regular business that you have, like you spend money, you put in a business, and if the business works, you're rich, and if the business doesn't work, you lose and you lost. It doesn't work that way, because I mean, you obviously are gaining credit with God anyways, so it's none of it is going to waste. I mean, you're still winning in whatever way you look at it, you're still winning. So this should be our mindset. But for the disbelievers, um, God says, spend willingly or willingly, nothing will be accepted from you for your evil people. Obviously, even if these people spend in the cause of God, whether they spend willingly or unwillingly, the people who are evil, the people who are hypocrites or disbelievers, obviously have idols in their lives. So, um, they will not gain anything from it. So obviously your belief has to come in place first in order for your efforts to be counted. If you don't believe in God and you do all the righteous things, I mean, God doesn't need it. The first thing you need is your belief. Then whether you're righteous or not brings the growth of your soul in. I mean, obviously that's comes secondary, right? But if you are disbelieving, nothing will actually, help. So, we should ask God to help us be those people that first, believe in God. Truly the belief has to be established. The foundation has to be there and it has to be firm. And then that also includes the trust in Him, the belief that God will come through, that He's there to support the believers. Nothing bad will happen to you if you support God. God says He will support you, and God says He will give you victory in this world and in the hereafter. So not just in the hereafter, but here also you will be happy and content, and you will live a peaceful and happy life, and you will be victorious. So this is God's promise, and we have to believe in it truly in order for us to make it. So with this, God willing, I'll end. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free.
MashaAllah, brother. Praise God for awesome Quran study.
Thank you.
Yeah, mashallah, that is a scary thought that yeah, those people were fighting battle actual in the battlefield with the swords, bloodshed, and all that. Very scary situation. And as we live in this uh, part of the world where it's full freedom, there's no oppression or anything like that. Imagine living in Middle East or Pakistan or even India is very free. You can do freedom of religion over there. But how do you do extra work over here? I mean, that is really true. Uh, we don't have any problem. So I guess the only thing we can do probably at this point is do more in religion. Uh, like these people, they were fighting, and I mean, I see some sort of similar thing happening with the submitters community. Confusion will be erupted and about a verse or some situation, and probably God test those who stand by the Quran or follow the crowd, and this is how they are distinguished, and then they follow their masjid or whatever they're doing, even though despite all the clear revelations has been explained by the messenger and everything has been explained, they still follow the confusion, and that causes them to go into further confusion until to the point they don't hear anything. So this, just like these people are being distinguished, that they were supposed to go to the war, and they want to stay sedentary, they want to stay back. uh, and there's a very clear difference between somebody can say that the verse in surah number, let me find it real quick. I think surah number 4, uh, that says that hold on one second, let me just get it real quick. It's right here. uh, it was about the verse that sedentary verse, God rewards both believers, those I'm paraphrasing, those who strive in the cause of God versus those who don't. God says they both have success in the hereafter, but those who strive in the cause of God, they have higher ranks. So if one is not doing extra work and think that I'm okay with the regular reward. First of all, it's a fine line that are you really in that regular submitter, regular believer, or not even. I mean, yeah, one is who's striving extra, they can expect high ranks. But if you're just gonna be sedentary, staying back, that I will be blessed with less. I mean, is it really uh, gonna benefit? Yeah, the verse number is Surah 4, verse 95. Not equal are the sedentary among the believers who are not handicapped, and those who strive in the cause of God with their money and their lives. God exalt those uh, the strivers with their money and their life. About the sedentary, both are for both God promised salvation, but God exalts the strivers over the sedentary with great recompense. And even those who are staying back, the believers who are not handicapped, and those are those who strive in the cause of God. So I mean to say that if you're not striving, then are you really falling into that category of those who will have rewards in the hereafter, but not a high rank? It's a very fine line if you fall into. So best thing to do is to do extra, so that you're not even in that category where there's a question mark that are you really are on those that God says that both have, for both God promised salvation, but God exalts the strivers. So God promised salvation. Okay, so I meant to say you don't want to be in that category where, okay, yeah, I'm not doing extra, but I'm at least in the category where I will have salvation. That group is very specific and is defined by a lot of fine lines where we may not even know we are in that group or not. Just want to mention that. Yeah, mashallah, the stock example is very good. And like as Salman said during the end part of the Quran study, that if you really trust God, only good things will happen. Uh, period. This is the belief you should have. The verse number 50 says, "If something good happens to you, they hurt, and if an affliction befalls you, they say, 'We told you so.' As they turn away, rejoicing." I mean, how horrible their feelings is being exposed by God. And we know that anything that good happens to us is from God, and anything that bad happens to us is from our own, like cause and effect. If there's something bad effect happens, there has to be a cause which was initiated by us. Like if you get a finger burn, I mean, God created the fire just for cooking and other stuff. But if you got burned, I mean, the effect and the cause was our mistake. And similarly, two mistakes are mentioned here by God. The the messenger giving permission to those who sedentary before they were exposed, as we just read in the previous verse. And earlier part of this surah is the battle of Hunayn. Before, like I think a few verses in the last Quran study, but they made again mistake. And so I mean, in verse number 50, God can easily keep things going positive in for believers without any suffering any kind of loss or anything. Then what would happen? The disbelievers or the weak believers or hypocrite, they cannot they God wants to expose them too at the same time. While the believers are going through their issues and stuff, God wants to expose these people as well. That's why God said that, why did you give permission to those who wants to stay back? Because God wants to expose them. I mean, if they because otherwise they will have excuse that, well, messenger gave us a permission to stay, even though that requesting the permission to stay back was still the wrong thing. But uh, and still God wants to expose them. And we see that a lot in our submission communities too, that people just want to stay back for, I mean, for no reason. They have no reason. And in fact, they don't even want to do the minimum requirements because they make excuses for that too. I cannot come to the prayer, or I cannot do this, I cannot join the Quran study, or things, different things that we supposed to be like messenger of the covenant said, that if you are in Tucson area and there's Quran study happening, you better be in that Quran study. I mean, I'm paraphrasing his words, that you should not find any excuse or anything that's happening that can go second, but you need to force yourself, whatever is happening. I mean, you get yourself out of that. In other words, what he's trying to say, that you unless it's a life and death situation, because God comes first. This is where God sees our innermost intentions, and that is extremely crucial.
Yeah, and now you don't have to live in Tucson to join the study too. I mean, or a certain city. You could be
Exactly.
anywhere and join a study.
Now you
You
have
don't have
less
to say my car
excuse.
broke down.
You have internet. You can sign in
Hmm.
anywhere you want.
Yeah, nowadays people say, my Wi-Fi is not working.
Exactly. Yeah, Wi-Fi is like, you have your cellular network. You can log in. Yeah, unless you're in a dungeon or somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi. Yeah, somebody's in the jail. I can't join. But this is just a martial example. Like uh, God has infinite, probably you can say, positions. Like when you apply for a job, that they're open, and it's like whoever comes and takes it. I know one community, submitter community, they strive so hard, that I was listening to their stories, that they don't let any opportunity go by for their business, no matter how middle of the night they get a call that there's a contract or there's this business is opening. They will fly in the middle of the night to get there to get it. Sometimes they come to Friday prayers, but as soon they leave, they're already talking where they're gonna hit next, to gain another business opportunity. And I see. So I'm not naming anybody. I'm just saying that there's one community I saw, and then when it comes to submission, they are doing bare minimum to just get by. And I'm like, is this really smart thinking? I mean, think about it. I mean, a smart person would see, the submission and submitting to God and do more here than over there. You know, it's like you are a very well qualified person, higher, double PhD and this and that, and you can earn $100 an hour easily or even more. And what are you doing? You are just doing minimum wage job in a fast food, and you earning and you working hard, and somebody comes to you and say, in fact, I met a person like that. This person was a doctor and just failed the MD exam and the board exam, and then just working minimum job. And I said, what are you doing? Just take 9 months off and do your hard study and pass them exam. You can work and make 50 times or maybe 10 times more money what you're making right now. So these people are don't know what their capabilities are, that is offered by God, that what you can actually earn. And you're not even doing minimum wage job, you're working for pennies, and you're leaving middle of the night to gain something that worth basically nothing in God's eyes. Like the earth gold full of gold will not be accepted. So mindset. Thank you. And I should also say that verse 34, this is a huge problem in our community. Masjid, oh my God. If you really would ever visit in yeah, you should not visit if you're a submitter, but if you would ever go to that or any masjid uh, during the Ramadan period, oh my God, the auction that goes on about, uh, the, the, the collection of the money, how they collect money. Oh my God. In the $100,000, uh, they will say that our electric bill this last year was $100,000. So we need 10 people with $10,000 donations, and people raising hand. Uh, because these people they're raising hand, they are making good money, and they want to give it to the masjid because so they can evade taxes also. And the amount of money they collect during the Ramadan is outrageous. And even when we used to go, and I'm like, how could be your electric bill is $100,000? I mean, or $120,000. You just have one masjid, and a few lights comes on. It shouldn't be no more than $1,000 a month. But the way they collect the money, for what reason? And when the Juma prayer happens, there is a price tag. Who's giving the sermon is a set amount, and when doing the taraweehs, they do also that who's gonna get the more money, and the people they're hafiz Quran, they are talking to each other, telling that, oh, that masjid offered me this much money and that masjid is offering this much money. So there's a lot of people just become the hafiz Quran, the who memorize the whole Quran just so they can live. It's like a job, mashallah. I mean, mashallah, I'm saying, but in a negative way, how they are making money through religion.
Okay, Joel Osteen, right?
Yes, Houston.
Yeah. I mean, they are. His net worth is $40 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and all these religious preachers,
Can I name one of the person here, Islamic?
You can name anybody.
Yeah, Noman Ali Khan. This guy came into
Mm-hmm,
submit into Islam in like early 90s or something like that.
mm-hmm,
And his earlier speeches, when we were traditional Muslims, it was very focused on Quran. And then he himself was saying, or that why don't you mention Hadith? And slowly, they dragged him into that. And then when his speeches will come on, he will have Muhammad and Allah written next to each other,
mm-hmm,
and his net is also per year is in seven figures. That's what I heard from
mm-hmm,
few sources. And
mm-hmm,
when they travel, they They knew they get offered, like suppose go to Indonesia for a speech, so they will fly with his whole family in a very luxurious way, and they get
Mm-hmm.
best accommodations. So all this, where is this coming from? All this by
Mm-hmm.
earning uh, money through religion, and their wealth is. I mean, they don't even show. And you were right, I guess, that they don't even pay the taxes the way we pay taxes with our own hard-earned money. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. But they have excuses because of religion money.
Yeah, they don't have to pay any taxes, basically.
Oh wow, that
Yeah.
is yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Even the Noman Ali Khan, he teaches the Quran, to how
Mm-hmm.
to read the Quran in Arabic, and the
Mm-hmm.
translation and learning the language. And I was enrolled in the program a while back, and they would charge you. It's online. It's just like a YouTube recording videos.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't post it on YouTube, but they have their own website where you have to pay a monthly subscription just to watch those videos. So they will
Mm-hmm.
try to make money any way they can possibly. I mean, look at, if you know how to translate the Quran or teach people how to read Arabic and things like that, you would give it free. Well, I mean, you're not doing any more effort. You made the video, you put it on YouTube, and like we have this channel, but they don't put it on YouTube. They put it in their own website, and they charge money for that. Think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to find net worth of this other guy, who made this thing about COVID, I can't find him. So go away,
COVID, what?
COVID. The one who was
Oh yeah,
yelling, go away,
go away,
COVID.
COVID. Yes, yes.
Yeah, he
I
was the
saw
one
him.
who
Yes.
was, recently questioned about all his jets and everything and his mansion and all that. Mm, Yes. I mean, all of these people have so many scandals and stuff. Also, God keeps exposing these people. As part of submission to prevail. I think He's allowing more and more of these false religionists to be exposed. I mean, especially the mathematical miracle. I mean, they're all exposed to us. But um, on top of that, like we have all of these scandals. Also including this guy Noman that you mentioned. There was also some kind of a thing on the news about him and. Um, Something similar, related to it's like a sex scandal or something. And I mean, obviously, all these
Yeah.
religious preachers have, all of these allegations of sexual abuse and stuff on top of that. And they're just evil hypocrites.
Yeah, because when you drift away from the right path, then you lost the to distinguish between good and bad. And when the opportunity arrives, like suppose
Hmm.
they run the masjids and there are a lot of female comes in,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you don't have any support from God to
Hmm.
keep you on the positive way. Satan is
Hmm.
have surrounded you. You will easily fall into his victim.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because I mean, when what prevents your soul from being tempted by these things is your growth of soul, right? When your soul is
Yes.
that of a tiny cat, for example, I mean, kitten,
Right.
obviously, it's not gonna be able to resist anything like that, so you're gonna have more and more urges. I mean, and they even go beyond the normal urges too, right? I mean, with all these, there's pedophiles and so many other kinds of people among them also, but like, obviously, the bigger sin is how they're idol worshippers and how they invite throngs of people to become idol worshippers, and they're chosen people from Satan to agents of Satan who are like taking millions along with them. So Satan has worked on them from a very early stage and groomed them in a way that they will do the work for him. So they just have to work on these preachers, and then they do the work. And so millions of people will just blindly follow them anyways, right? So they just have to work on these handful. Satan has to work on these handful of preachers and take everybody to hell. They'll do the rest for Satan.
Yeah, the sad part is when they ignore the signs in the beginning, and they further go deep into the quicksand, and the deeper they go, the they lose their more power. When like in the quicksand, when your feet is only in, you maybe you can get out, but the further you go, it's harder and harder to get out, even if nobody can even help you at that point. But God helps is always there. I mean, all you need to do is just change your mind
Mhm.
before your death.
Okay. Yeah, mashallah. I also want to say if there are any off-topic questions too, I mean, it doesn't have to be just things we talked about. So if anyone has any off-topic questions that they might want to bring up, we can just definitely discuss those as well uh, towards the end of the session. Hmm. Right. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Right. I mean, so look, I would say that the thing is, appearances can be deceiving, right? So you can tell a person by wearing, for example, if they're wearing a suit, or this person is wearing a suit, that person also wearing a suit, so they're the same, right? I mean, you can't go by that. The thing is, what they have to focus on is a message, right? Now both people in this example would say they have the message, right? Like say Joel Osteen and Rashad, as an example, right? But the difference between them, both of them, is that the mathematical miracle is his proof, right? Now none of these people have something like that to prove that they are sent by God, right? So that should be the ultimate proof for anybody who is destined to get the message, to actually, examine, the scientific, mathematical, tangible, physical evidence to decide whether he's lying or not. If they come to that conclusion that the miracle is from God, then they better listen to the messenger, right? Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, also, the thing is that, I mean, these are all excuses that, people come up with. Like, I think the Master of the Covenant, like, he even talked about people, for example, like, someone tells them, there's people that are, like, this is how he talked about it. It's like, there's people, that listen to people who are sipping whiskey, he said, right? And he says, do you know that Rashad Khalifa picks his nose? And the people's like, oh, really? It's like, oh, I will never go to that masjid again, because so this is how the people are looking for the flimsiest of excuses to reject the truth. But the thing is, for us, like, it shouldn't hurt us because it's not us. God says, it's not you that they reject. It's God that the wicked, disregard. So we have to know that these things. This is just on their part, like, they're not destined to get the message. I mean, it's harder for people that are close to us, our relatives and friends, and we want them to be guided. But we know that the guidance comes from God, and we can't really control it. And not everybody's gonna get it. Not everybody deserves to get it. They're not destined to get it, and we just should be happy with that, knowing that whatever God happens in this, it takes place. And people, sometimes people can be very seemingly very righteous and kind and loving, and they could be in other ways, but God knows about them what we don't know, and they're not destined to accept the message. And I mean, we shouldn't worry about that. Mhm. Yeah, we say, the proof is in the pudding, right? So they should really look at the mathematical proof and then come to a conclusion. People should not just reject something without examining the evidence, right? Oh. Well, we know that the mathematical miracle of the Quran protects the Arabic, uh, right? But the thing is, the authorized English version of the Quran is sent by God. I mean, God is still protecting it, right? But if someone wants to, for example, in this age, if people want to add things to it or try to change it or stuff like that, I mean, they can change. I mean, the Quran, they can change the Arabic Quran too, in that sense. The thing is, it's just ink and paper, so it doesn't make a difference. I mean, what people do. I mean, you can separate it, you can cut it into pieces, you can tear it, you can burn it. I mean, it's just ink and paper in that sense. So they can actually change the actual Quran itself, whether it's in Arabic or in English. Thing is, God is the one who's protecting it. I mean, we know that the God is protect. We know that God is protecting the Arabic also. The mathematical miracle is there to show if anybody tampers with it. But we don't have for example, the mathematical miracle on top of the English. The English is authorized, the English version, but I mean, it does. The mathematical miracle is not on the English. But the thing is, we have with today's, I mean, the way God has planned all of this. I mean, we're further, uh, along in technology where, we have dated evidence of all of these things. So it's not that simple for people to just go and change it. They cannot erase like history. So it's not that simple for people to do it. I mean, it's God's plan that submission will prevail and people are destined to get the true message. So, I don't think people can do anything like that. But like what I said, I mean, if you look at the Quran too, I mean, the Arabic Quran, people have changed it, right? People have added the two false verses, but the mathematical miracle simply exposes it. But it doesn't stop people from printing, altered versions of it. It exposes the two false verses at the end of Surah 9. Yes.
Also, inshallah, I'll say that, as messenger of the covenant also says that if you're delivering the message, you can be as diplomatic as you can. I think is my understanding is that if you have to twist something that maybe the other person can understand, and where you think that, oh, am I making a mistake, but your intentions were that this person will understand what I'm talking about. uh, that's, I guess, one of the way you can say being diplomatic. Also, I see the
Yeah, I think
audience.
twist is not the right word though.
Hmm. Like what?
Well, usually people use twist to like for as a negative thing.
Oh yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I normally see that who's my audience, like if
Mhm.
I'm talking to my family member who doesn't know about religion at all, and here I start my conversation with, God sent a messenger. His name is Shrat Khalifa. He came with the miracle 19. They may not even hear my rest of the message. They'll say, "Oh, you're Qadiani. Get out of here." They won't even talk to me. I mean, I got my message in stages where if somebody would have walked up to me and said the same thing, I probably would have said the same thing. But God made me come into submission in stages, learning from the beginning through the Quran and reading the Quran and trying to understand the simple meanings. We're rejecting the Hadith and coming to step by step. So my approach with the people is I start off with the Quran and tell them that this is what the Word of God is, and what is the true Shahada is, and how we have to stick by Quran and not let the Hadith dictate us and things like that. If they don't even accept that basic thing, how you gonna teach them like college level English if they don't even understand ABC? I mean, you jump straight to ABC. I mean, higher level, then they may not even understand. This is my approach, and if they don't even get the basic message, then there's no point going further from that. Mashallah. That's correct.
Yeah, I would think that. Sorry, go ahead, Nabil. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like different people are resistant to different things, and like different people get the message differently. For some people, like myself, it's hard to accept a messenger, right? It was hard to accept the messenger. For other people, the messengership might not be the hiccup, such a big hiccup. So the thing is, God does say that, we have to give the message with wisdom and kind enlightenment. But there is no specific recipe in terms of like you have to say this first and you have to say that this later. But and some people do that, but I think that's they're kind of like limiting it in a way, so maybe we shouldn't have like a hard and fast rule. Like for example, for a lot of people, like they will do that, like they'll tell other people that you shouldn't talk about a man. Like first, some people say, for example, if you meet a Christian, like don't tell him that Jesus is not son of God. You tell him like God is great and this and that, and for example, talk about Jesus later or something. But maybe some Christian who's destined to get the message of submission, for example, might be struggling with the idea that Jesus is not the Son of God and everything else makes sense to them, right? So it's really what they are destined. If someone's destined to get the message, God will make the message come to them in a way that they're meant to receive it, and what makes them. So really, all of it is controlled by God. Like we can't really regulate it. But what we have to just remember, God has kept it very general. God has said that, you have to spread it with wisdom and kind enlightenment. You have to debate with them in the best possible manner. So our demeanor in which we speak to people and how we present it is very important. Not specifically like what we can talk about and what not, but yeah, you have to be wise in how you say it. If you know certain things about a person, for example, if you know a person is so passionate about Jesus and you're trying to give them the message, maybe it might not be the right course of action to just just start saying that Jesus has no power and stuff. Maybe, but there's no hard and fast rule for us. But just we have to keep it general, as God has kept it general. That you debate with wisdom, kind of enlightenment, and do it in the best possible manner, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how I like to keep it because there's so many kinds of people, that you come across. They're all different from each other, and they all have different experiences in life. So, uh, inshallah. Inshallah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mashallah, sister. That's a lot of encouragement. I don't know if I can do that, but this is, I mean, thanks for motivating us. And no matter what situation, you do the best possible, assessing the situation and say it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, mashallah. Oh, oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think the
mashallah.
important thing to remember, yeah, yeah, mashallah. And I think, the important thing to remember is like when you give people the message, whether they accept it or not, it shouldn't really bother us really because,
Yeah.
your credit is with God, like Maria was saying earlier. Like your credit is with God, and so you will still get the credit. It doesn't matter. If you give the message to someone and they accept submission, and they're doing their prayers. I mean, it's not really gonna like, for example, you give the message to two people, right? One person accepts and one doesn't. You know, it's not that you're gonna get different credits. You're still gonna get your credit for doing your part, right? Whether the person accepted or not, it doesn't. That's not relevant to you.
Yeah, I mean, true. When Moses went to Pharaoh's, I mean, God already knew only at the end of the day two people will be the true believers. But why giving the message? So the message has to be
Mm-hmm.
delivered, regardless which way, so people can get the message. So on the day of judgment,
Mm-hmm.
they cannot say we haven't heard it. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a good opportunity for some people, for us, that to pass this information as much as we can, because we're doing God's work. It's like the verse number 40 that we read. If you fail to support him, the messenger, God has already supported him.
Mm-hmm.
So just like we were reading, the it will dominate the world religion, it will prevail. So that prophecy will come to pass no matter what. So whoever can get on board with this train, better for them. I mean, God is going to do that regardless of whether we join or not. This domination will come. So the more of us and the more we do, mashallah, the more credit for us. Also, mashallah, Suleman, when you were saying about the example, like if you're standing high above and you jump and you know that the person gonna catch me, that you have to be the person, like when you say I trust God, but you have to be that person who God is gonna support. I mean, then you can be depending on God's support. Like the verses 2:186 says, when my servants ask you about me, I am always near. I answer their prayers. When they pray to me, the people shall respond to me and believe in me in order to be guided. So God does answers our prayers, but there's a condition to that. Are you that person God is going to answer? And that condition is the people shall respond to me and believe in me in order to be guided. So are all these conditions are met, then when you jump, you know for sure God is going to support you, mashallah.
Any other comments or questions, anyone? If not, God willing, we could conclude our study here. Thank you all for joining. God willing, our next study is going to be on Tuesday, and, and I believe, God willing, Huda will be leading that study Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, God willing. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, keep going.